The night was quiet, colder than usual, and the sky above the small desert base was clear and full of stars. Then suddenly, everything changed. A bright light cut across the sky, moving too fast to be a plane, too silent to be a missile. Soldiers looked up. "Confused and alert, sir." "What is that?" one guard whispered. No one answered, because no one knew. The object burned like fire, but it did not fall like anything they had seen before. It slowed down, almost like it was choosing where to land. Then, with a deep shaking sound, it crashed just outside the base walls, sending dust and heat into the air. Alarms started ringing instantly, red lights flashing everywhere. Soldiers grabbed their weapons and rushed toward the crash site. "Move. Move. Secure the area," the commander shouted. Within minutes, they surrounded the strange object. It was not a plane, not a drone, not anything from Earth. It was a small ship, smooth and silver, with no visible doors, no windows, and no markings. "It's alien," someone said under his breath. The commander didn't reply, but everyone was thinking the same thing. Carefully, they moved closer, weapons ready, hearts beating fast. Then something strange happened. The surface of the ship began to open, like metal turning into liquid, slowly forming an entrance. Everyone froze. Out of the darkness inside, they expected something dangerous, something powerful, something terrifying. But what they saw was none of those things. It was a child. A small alien girl stepped out slowly, weak and shaking. Her skin was pale blue, her eyes large and glowing softly. She looked thin, like she had not eaten in days. She took one step forward, then another, and then she fell to her knees. No one fired, no one moved. For a moment, there was only silence. "Don't shoot," the commander said quietly. Two soldiers approached carefully, lowering their weapons. The child did not fight, did not run, did not even look at them. She just sat there, her head down, her body still. They brought her inside the base, into a secure room, cameras watching every movement, scientists and officers gathering quickly. "Can she understand us?" One scientist asked. "Try speaking." Another replied. They tried everything. Simple words, different languages, soft voices, loud commands. "Hello. Can you hear me? Are you hurt?" But the child did not respond. Not even a blink. Hours passed, then days. Doctors checked her. She was alive, healthy enough, but extremely quiet. Too quiet. "She's not reacting to anything," one doctor said. "No fear, no anger, no communication," another added. It was like she was there, but also not there. Days turned into weeks, and still nothing changed. The alien child never spoke, never made a sound, never tried to escape. She would sit in the corner of the room, holding her knees, staring at nothing, even when they brought food. She only ate slowly, without looking at anyone. Even when machines made loud noises, she did not react. Even when someone accidentally dropped a metal tray near her, she didn't flinch. "That's not normal," a scientist whispered. "It's like she gave up." The government quickly took control, labeling her as a non-responsive alien subject. They studied her, tested her, observed her every second. But they learned nothing because she gave them nothing. After months, the interest started to fade. "She's useless," one officer said coldly. "No communication, no information, no threat." Some even started calling her the Silent One. 10 years passed like this. 10 years of silence. The small alien girl grew a little older, but nothing else changed. No words, no emotions, no connection. People stopped trying. Guards changed. Scientists left. New ones came. But the result was always the same, silence, until one day, something unexpected happened. A new worker arrived at the facility. Just a simple man, not a scientist, not a soldier, someone no one really noticed. He walked past her room, like many others had done before, but unlike the others. He stopped. He looked at the silent child sitting alone in the corner, and for the first time in years, someone saw her not as an experiment, but as a child, He took a small step closer to the glass, and softly, with no fear, no pressure, just simple kindness, he said one word, "Hello," and in that moment, something changed. The girl slowly lifted her head, her glowing eyes moved, and for the first time in 10 years, she looked at someone, and the room, for the first time in a decade, was not completely silent anymore. The cameras recorded everything, every movement, every second, and that night, something unusual appeared on the screens. For 10 long years, the alien child had never reacted to anyone, not to voices, not to faces, not even to pain, but now, she was looking at him. The guards in the control room leaned closer to their monitors, confused and silent. "Wait. Did you see that?" one of them said. "She moved," another replied, his voice low with shock. Inside the glass room, the man stood still, not too close, not too far. He was just a cleaner, a simple worker named Daniel, someone who fixed small things, cleaned floors, and stayed invisible to most people. He didn't wear a lab coat, didn't carry authority, didn't look important, but right now, he was the only person the alien child was watching. Daniel didn't know about the reports, the failed tests, or the 10 years of silence. He only saw a child sitting alone. He gave a small, gentle smile. "Hello," he said again, softly. The girl did not speak, but her eyes did not look away this time. That alone was something no one had seen before. Daniel slowly sat down on the floor, outside the glass wall, keeping himself at her level. "I'm Daniel," he said in a calm voice. No response, but he didn't expect one. He simply stayed there, quiet, not forcing anything. Minutes passed, usually. The girl would lose interest, return to her empty stare. But not today. Today, she kept watching him. Her small hands tightened slightly around her knees, as if she was unsure. Daniel noticed, but he didn't move closer. He didn't try to touch the glass. He just sat. "You don't have to talk," he said gently. "I'll talk enough for both of us." In the control room, the scientists were now fully focused, recording everything. "This is different," one of them whispered. "Why is she reacting to him?" No one had the answer. Back in the room, Daniel looked around, then back at her. "It's quiet here," he said. Too quiet. Still no words from her, but her head tilted just a little, a small movement. Almost impossible to notice. Daniel smiled again, a little wider this time. "I guess you like quiet." He reached into his pocket slowly, making sure not to scare her. From it, he pulled out something small, a simple piece of candy. Wrapped in bright paper, he placed it gently on the floor, near the glass. "I don't know what you eat," he said, "but humans like this." The girl's glowing eyes shifted, just for a second, toward the candy, then back to him. Another small change, another impossible moment. Hours later, the guards told Daniel to leave. His shift was over. He stood up slowly, careful not to break whatever fragile moment existed. "I'll come back tomorrow," he said simply. No promise, no expectation, just a simple sentence, as he turned to walk away. Something happened again. The girl moved, not much, just a small shift forward, but it was enough to make the guards freeze. "She moved again," one whispered. Daniel paused, then looked back at her, for a brief second. Their eyes met again, then he left. That night, the entire facility changed. Reports were written, alarms were not needed. But attention was high. The silent one had reacted. For the first time in 10 years, the next day, Daniel returned. Just like he said he would. He walked to the glass room, calm and simple, like it was nothing special. But inside, everyone was watching. The girl was already there, sitting in her usual place. But something was different. She wasn't staring into nothing anymore. She was looking at the door, waiting. Daniel stepped into view. "Hey," he said softly, and again. She looked directly at him. No fear this time, just quiet attention. Daniel sat down like before, relaxed, patient. "I told you I'd come back," he said. He placed another small candy near the glass. "I brought more." The girl slowly leaned Forward, just a little. Her eyes moved between him and the candy. The camera zoomed in, capturing every detail. "Is she going to take it?" someone whispered. No one breathed. Seconds felt like minutes then. Very slowly, the alien child reached out her hand, not fully, not fast, just a small, careful movement, as if she was testing the world again, and for the first time. She didn't look afraid anymore, but somewhere deep inside the facility, someone else was watching too, and they were not interested in kindness. They were interested in control, and now that the silent child was changing, they were not going to let it happen. The next few days felt different. Even the air inside the facility seemed to change. For 10 years, nothing had worked, no voice, no machine, no experiment had reached the silent child, but now, small things were happening, and all of them started with one person, Daniel. He came every day, always at the same time. Always calm, always simple. He never rushed, never forced anything. He just sat near the glass like before. "Hello," he would say, every single time, and every single time. She looked at him. The scientists were watching closely now, writing notes, recording every second. "Eye contact continues," one of them said quietly. "No signs of fear response," another added. But they still didn't understand why inside the room. The alien child sat closer to the glass than before. Not too close, but no longer hiding in the corner. That alone was a big change. Daniel noticed it, but he didn't make a big deal. "Hey," he said, sitting down again, "I think you moved closer." "Today." She didn't answer, but her eyes stayed on him. Daniel smiled a little. "I'll take that as a yes." He brought small things with him each day. Simple human things. A soft cloth, a small light, a toy that made a quiet sound. Nothing loud, nothing scary. He placed them near the glass, never pushing them toward her, just leaving them there. Like an invitation. At first, she only looked, then. One day, she touched one. It was a small object, a soft ball. Her fingers moved slowly, as if the object might disappear. She picked it up, then quickly pulled her hand back. Daniel didn't react fast. He didn't clap or speak loudly. He just nodded. "That's yours," he said gently. "You can keep it." The girl looked at the ball again, then at him. Something was changing inside her, not fully, not clearly, but slowly, like a broken light trying to turn on again. Days turned into a quiet routine. Daniel would come, sit, talk, and leave, and every day, the child changed just a little more. She started moving closer without fear. She started watching him longer, and sometimes she followed his movements with her eyes. The scientists noticed everything. "She's responding to patterns," one said. "No," another replied. "She's responding to him." That made them uncomfortable, because they had used everything they had, and failed, and this simple man with no training, no plan, was succeeding. One afternoon, something even more surprising happened. Daniel was sitting as usual, talking about small things. "I used to have a dog," he said, smiling softly. He was loud, always running around. The girl was watching him closely, not just looking, listening. Daniel picked up the soft ball and gently rolled it toward the glass, stopping it just before it touched. "Your turn," he said lightly. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the girl moved. She leaned forward slowly, her small hands reaching out. She touched the ball again, this time holding it longer. Her fingers tightened around it. Then she pushed it forward. It didn't roll much, but it moved back toward him. Daniel blinked, surprised. Then he smiled, a real smile. "Yeah." Just like that. In the control room, people stood up, unable to stay still. "She interacted," someone said. "This is real communication," another whispered. But inside the room, it didn't feel like an experiment. It felt like something simple, something human, a quiet connection. As the days passed, the girl stopped sitting in the corner completely. Now she stayed near the glass, waiting for the only person who spoke to her, like she mattered. One day, Daniel arrived a little late. Something unexpected had delayed him. Inside the room, the girl was already there. But this time, she wasn't calm. She moved slightly back and forth, her hands tightening, her eyes fixed on the empty space where he usually appeared. Something close to worry. Then finally Daniel walked in, a little out of breath. "Sorry," he said softly. "I'm late." The moment she saw him, she stopped moving, her body relaxed just a little, and for the first time, she stood up, not fully confident, not strong, but standing. The guards watching the cameras froze again. "She's never done that before," Daniel noticed too, his eyes widening slightly. "Hey, you're standing," he said gently. He didn't move closer, didn't rush. He just stayed there, letting her choose. The girl took one small step forward, then stopped, her glowing eyes locked on his, and in that silent moment, it was clear. She wasn't just reacting anymore. She was trusting. But deep inside the facility, the people in charge were no longer just watching. They were planning, because to them, this was no longer just a silent child. This was something valuable, and they were not going to let a simple human take that away. The changes were becoming impossible to ignore. For 10 years, the alien child had been silent, still almost invisible, but now she stood, she moved, she watched, and most importantly, she trusted one human, Daniel, inside the control room. The mood was no longer curious, it was tense. "This is going too far," one officer said, arms crossed. "She's forming a connection," another added. "That was the goal," a scientist replied carefully. "No," the officer said coldly. "Control was the goal." The difference between those two words was everything. Back inside the glass room, Daniel sat as usual, calm and relaxed. The girl stood near him, closer than ever before. She didn't sit in the corner anymore, didn't hide. Her glowing eyes followed him with quiet focus. "You're getting braver," Daniel said softly. No answer. But her head tilted slightly, as if she understood. Daniel noticed small things now, things others missed. The way her hands tightened when loud footsteps passed outside. The way her eyes dropped when someone in a uniform walked by. The way her body froze when a door shut too hard. These were not random reactions. These were signs of fear. But not fear of everything. Only fear of certain things, and Daniel was starting to understand. "You're not scared of me," he said quietly one day, "but you're scared of them." The girl didn't answer, but her eyes moved, just for a second, toward the door. That was enough that night. Daniel couldn't stop thinking about it. Something had happened to her before she came here. Something bad. Something that made her silent for 10 years. And whatever it was connected to people in control. People with power. The next day, he came again. But this time, he brought something different. Not a toy, not food. A small piece of paper. He sat down and placed it near the glass, along with a simple pencil. "I want to try something," he said gently. The girl watched him carefully. Daniel slowly drew a small shape on the paper, a simple house, then a stick figure next to it. "That's me," he said with a soft smile. Then he drew another figure, smaller, and "This could be you." He pushed the paper slightly closer to the glass. "You don't have to talk," he said, "but maybe you can show me." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the girl stepped closer. Her movements were slow, careful. Like always, she looked at the paper, then at Daniel, then slowly. She reached for the pencil. In the control room, everyone went silent again, recording everything. A scientist whispered. The girl held the pencil awkwardly, like she had never used one before. Her hand trembled slightly, then she touched the paper. At first, just a small line, then another. Daniel didn't speak, didn't move. He just watched, patiently. The lines became shapes, not clear, not perfect. But something was forming, a dark shape above the small figures. Large, heavy, almost like a shadow, then lines around it, sharp, chaotic. The girl's breathing became slightly faster. Her hand pressed harder on the paper. Daniel's expression changed, becoming more serious. "It's okay," he said softly. "You're safe here." But the girl suddenly stopped. Her hand froze, her eyes widened, and for a brief second, fear returned, real fear. She dropped the pencil, stepping back quickly, her body shaking. The guards outside reacted instantly. "Step away," one of them said loudly. The sudden voice made it worse. The girl moved further back, her breathing uneven. Daniel raised his hand slightly. "No, wait," he said calmly. But the guards were already alert, ready to enter if needed. The room felt different now. The calm was gone, replaced by tension. Daniel slowly stood up, but didn't move closer. "It's okay," he said again, softer this time. "No one will hurt you." The girl looked at him, her glowing eyes filled with something new. Not silence, not emptiness, but memory, painful memory. And in that moment, Daniel understood. She wasn't silent because she couldn't speak. She was silent because she was afraid of being heard, afraid of what happens when she speaks. In the control room, the officers were already making decisions. "That's enough," one of them said. "She's unstable. We need to move her to a higher security lab." "No," a scientist argued. "She's improving. She's becoming useful," the officer replied coldly. "And that means we take control now." Orders were given quickly. Transfer preparations started immediately. Back inside the room, Daniel didn't know all the details yet, but he could feel it. Something was about to change, and not in a good way. He looked at the girl, still standing at a distance, still shaking slightly. "I'll be back tomorrow," he said softly, but this time, he wasn't sure if that would be allowed. And as the lights in the facility dimmed that night, warning alarms quietly activated in the background, because somewhere deep inside the system, a transfer had been approved, and once it started, there would be no going back. The night felt heavier than usual, like something bad was about to happen. Deep inside the facility, lights were dim, but activity was rising. Guards moved faster, doors opened and closed with sharp sounds, and quiet orders passed through radios. The transfer had begun. In her glass room, the alien child sat still, but not like before. This silence was different. It was tense. Her glowing eyes kept moving toward the door, again and again, as if she could feel what was coming. For 10 years, she had stayed quiet, hidden inside herself, but now, something inside her was awake, and it was afraid. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Louder, closer, not one or two, but many. The kind of sound that always made her freeze. The door unlocked with a sharp click. She flinched, her body tightening instantly. 3 guards entered, followed by a tall officer in a dark uniform. Cold eyes, no emotion. "Prepare the subject," he said flatly. The guards moved forward slowly, carefully, like approaching something dangerous. The girl stepped back, her breathing getting faster, her eyes widened, glowing brighter than before. "No." "Sudden moves," one guard said, raising his hand slightly, but to her, this was not calm. This was the same feeling from before. The same fear, the same memory, far away from there. Daniel was walking quickly through the hallway. He had heard the whispers, seen the increased security. Something was wrong, very wrong. He reached the control room, pushing the door open. "What's happening?" he asked, trying to stay calm. The room went silent for a moment. "She's being transferred," one officer said without looking at him. "Transferred where?" Daniel asked. "That's not your concern," the officer replied coldly. Daniel's jaw tightened. "She's not ready," he said. "She was just starting to trust." "That's exactly why we're moving her," the officer said, finally looking at him. "She's becoming valuable." Daniel shook his head slowly. "She's becoming human." The officer gave a small, humorless smile. "That's not our goal." Back inside the room, the guards stepped closer. The girl moved back until her body touched the wall. No more space to escape. Her hands pressed tightly against her chest, her breathing uneven. "Easy," one guard said, reaching out slowly, but the moment his hand moved closer, something snapped. The girl let out a sound, not a word, not a scream, but something in between. A broken, painful sound that echoed through the room. Everyone froze for 10 years. She had never made a sound, and now she couldn't stay silent anymore. In the control room, alarms started flashing. Audio response detected. A scientist shouted. Daniel's heart dropped. "No," he whispered. Back in the room, the girl's eyes burned brighter, her body shaking, not from weakness, but from something building inside. The lights flickered. A low hum filled the air. "What's happening?" one guard said, stepping back. The officer's voice came through the speaker, sharp and urgent. "Secure her now." But it was too late. The girl dropped to her knees, her hands covering her head, and then everything in the room shook. Glass cracked, lights burst, and a wave of force pushed the guards backward. They hit the walls hard, weapons falling from their hands. The girl stayed in the center, small and shaking, but now she was not helpless. Daniel ran, ignoring the shouts behind him. "Stop him," someone yelled. But he didn't stop. He reached the hallway leading to her room, alarms screaming now, red lights flashing everywhere. Inside, the door was half damaged, sparks flying from its edges. He pushed through. "Hey," he said loudly but gently. The girl looked up instantly, her glowing eyes locking onto him. The fear was still there, but something else too, recognition. "Hey." "It's me," Daniel said, raising his hand slowly. "You're okay." The shaking around her slowed, just a little. The broken lights stopped flickering as much. The guards groaned on the floor. Trying to move, Daniel stepped closer, slowly, carefully. "No. One's going to take you," he said. "I won't let them." The girl stared at him, her breathing still uneven. Then slowly, she reached out, her small hand grabbing his sleeve tightly, holding on, not letting go. Behind them, more footsteps were coming. More guards, louder, faster. "We have to go," Daniel said quickly. He looked around, then toward the damaged door. "There's no time." The girl didn't understand every word, but she understood him, and that was enough. Together, they moved toward the exit, alarms screaming around them. A human and a once silent alien child running from the people who were supposed to protect them. But as they reached the hallway, the sound of heavy doors locking echoed through the facility, and a cold voice came over the speakers. "Containment protocol activated." Daniel stopped for a second, his heart sinking, because now this wasn't just an escape, this was a chase. The red lights kept flashing, painting the long hallway in danger and fear. Sirens screamed from every direction, echoing through the metal walls. Daniel and the alien child ran together, fast but unsteady. Her small hand still held tightly onto his sleeve, refusing to let go. Behind them, heavy footsteps grew louder. "They're coming," Daniel said, breathing hard. He looked left and right, searching for a way out. But the facility was already changing. Doors were locking, steel barriers sliding down from the ceiling, cutting off paths one by one. "Containment protocol active," the cold voice repeated through the speakers. The girl flinched at the sound, her grip tightening. Daniel felt it immediately. "It's okay," he said quickly. "Softer now. Stay with me." They turned a corner, finding a narrow corridor, darker and quieter for a moment. The noise behind them faded. Daniel slowed down, leaning against the wall, trying to think. "We can't outrun them forever," he whispered. The girl stood close to him, her glowing eyes watching his face. Not the hallway, not the danger, just him. Her breathing was still fast, but not wild anymore. Being near him was changing that. Daniel looked down at her, his expression soft but serious. "You don't have to be afraid," he said gently. "They won't hurt you." But even as he said it, he knew it wasn't fully true. The girl's eyes shifted for a moment, like she understood more than he thought. Then suddenly, the lights above them flickered again. A deep vibration moved through the floor. "They're close," Daniel said, pushing himself up. "We have to move." They started running again, but this time, the girl slowed down, just a little. Daniel noticed. "Come on," he said, reaching back. but she didn't move faster instead. She stopped right in the middle of the corridor. Daniel turned back quickly, confused. "Hey, what are you doing?" The girl stood still, her small body shaking slightly, her glowing eyes brighter than ever. But this time, it wasn't just fear, it was something else, something stronger. The sound of boots echoed closer now, voices shouted. "Orders, she's in this sector. Move in." Daniel's heart raced. No. "We have to go," he said urgently. He stepped toward her, reaching out, but she didn't move. Her eyes stayed locked on his, and then she opened her mouth. For 10 years, there had been nothing, no words, no voice, no sound, but now, something finally broke through the silence. "Stay." The word was soft, broken, barely a whisper, but it was clear, real, alive. Daniel froze, his hands still in the air, his eyes widened in shock. "You," he whispered, behind them. The guards were getting closer, but in that moment, nothing else mattered. The girl took a small step toward him, her hand reaching out again, this time not just holding, but asking, "Stay." She said again, a little stronger, her voice shaking, but real. Emotion filled her glowing eyes, something deep and painful, like she had been holding it inside for years. Daniel felt something break inside his chest. All the days, all the silence, all the waiting. It was all leading to this moment. "I'm here," he said softly, his voice steady now. "I'm not going anywhere." The girl's breathing slowed, just a little. The shaking in her body eased, and around them, the lights stopped flickering. The air felt still again, as if her voice had calmed something unseen. But the peace didn't last long. The guards turned the corner, weapons raised. "There," one of them shouted. "Don't move." Daniel quickly stepped in front of her, protecting her without thinking. "She's not dangerous," he said loudly. "She just spoke." The guards hesitated for a second, confused. "She what?" one asked. But the officer's voice came through their combs, cold and sharp. "Do not engage emotionally. Secure the subject now." The moment broke. The tension returned. The girl stepped closer behind Daniel, her hand gripping his shirt now, but this time, she wasn't silent anymore. Her voice, even weak, had changed everything. Daniel looked at the guards, then back at her, and in that moment, he made a choice, not as a worker, not as part of the facility, but as a human. "We're leaving," he said quietly. The guards raised their weapons again. "Stop," one warned. But the girl stepped forward slightly, her glowing eyes focused, and the air around them began to change again, because now, she was no longer just the silent child. She had found her voice, and whatever had been holding her back for 10 years was finally breaking free. The air in the corridor felt heavy, like the world itself was holding its breath. Red lights still flashed, but slower now, almost fading in the background. Daniel stood in front of the alien child, his body between her and the guards. His heart was racing, but his voice stayed calm. "No one is taking her," he said quietly. The guards didn't move, but their weapons stayed raised. They were waiting for orders, and those orders came quickly, cold and clear. "Secure the subject." Officer's voice echoed through their combs. "Use force if necessary." The moment those words ended, everything changed. The girl stepped forward, not hiding behind Daniel anymore. Her small hand gently touched his arm, moving him slightly to the side. Daniel looked at her, surprised. "It's okay," he whispered. But this time, she wasn't the one who needed protection. Her glowing eyes lifted, focusing on the guards for the first time. There was no fear in them, only quiet strength. "Stay," she said again, her voice still soft, but clearer now. The word wasn't just for Daniel anymore. It filled the air, and suddenly, the guards couldn't move, not frozen by fear, but held like an invisible force wrapped around them, stopping every step, every motion. What is this?" one of them struggled to say, their weapons lowered slightly, not by choice, but by something stronger. Daniel stared, shocked but understanding. "It's her," he whispered. The girl's power wasn't loud, wasn't violent. It was controlled, quiet. Like her silence had been, years of holding everything inside had turned into something powerful. Footsteps echoed again, but this time different, heavier, slower. The guard's eyes shifted behind Daniel, and then the hallway lights changed, white, soft, the red emergency glow fading away at the far end of the corridor. Figures appeared, not human, tall, calm, their presence quiet but overwhelming. Their forms were smooth, their eyes glowing like hers, but older, wiser. Daniel felt it instantly. They were like her. The girl stepped forward slowly, her eyes locked on them. Something deep inside her recognized them. One of the figures moved closer, stopping a short distance away. Their voice was not loud, but it was heard clearly. "You are safe now." The girl's body trembled slightly, not from fear, but from emotion. Daniel looked between them, confused. "Who are you?" he asked. The figure turned its gaze toward him, calm and steady. "We are her people." The truth settled in the air. "She is not just a child," the figure continued. "She is one of the last of our kind. And more than that." Daniel looked at her, his expression changing slowly. "More than that," he repeated softly. The figure nodded slightly. "She carries something important, something others tried to control." The girl's eyes dropped. For a moment, memories passing silently, they took her voice. "Not by force, but by fear," the figure said. "She chose silence to survive." Daniel's chest tightened. All those years, she had been protecting herself, not broken, just hiding. The figure stepped closer, extending a hand toward her. "Come," it said gently. "It is time to return." The hallway felt still again. The guards were no longer a threat. The alarms were quiet now, almost gone. Everything came down to one moment, one choice. The girl looked at the figure, then slowly turned her head, looking at Daniel for a long second. Neither of them moved. No words were needed. Everything was already understood. Daniel gave a small, soft smile. "It's your choice," he said quietly. "I'm not going anywhere." The girl stepped forward, but not toward the figure. She moved closer to Daniel instead, her small hand reaching for his again, holding on tightly. The alien figure watched, silent for a moment, then gave a slow nod. "A rare choice," it said calmly, "to trust another species." After everything, Daniel felt her grip, strong and certain. "She's not alone anymore," he said. The figure looked at both of them. "Then she will not be taken." Another pause. "Instead, you will both be given a choice." The air shifted again, softer this time, a new path. The figure said, "Together." Daniel looked down at the girl. She looked back at him, her glowing eyes no longer empty, no longer afraid, but alive, and for the first time, she smiled. "Just a little stay," she said again, but this time, it didn't sound like fear. It sounded like hope, and in a universe full of power, control, and fear, a silent alien child had chosen something stronger, kindness, and a human had chosen her back.